Hey friends, welcome in to Just Stamp with Anna Marie. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Riverside, California, and today I am going to be sharing with you a holiday project. I'm calling it K-Cups for Two Caddy. It is the perfect little token of friendship or appreciation gift. I'm going to share with you how to make it so you can make your own. I will say I have filled mine with Holiday Blend Starbucks K-Cups, but you can get K-Cups in tea and cocoa as well. So here is what we're going to need to make the project as I'm sharing the project. I'm using Mossy Meadow and I need a complete sheet, 11 by 8.5. I need a scrap of Real Red cardstock, a scrap of Pear Pizzazz cardstock, a scrap of Whisper White, and I'm using the Heartwarming Hugs Designer Series paper. I've cut two different patterns here. I've got the striped pattern, and these measurements are 4 1/4 by 2 inches, as well as 4 1/4 by 1 3/4. I've also got one scrap of a Pear Pizzazz pattern. It measures about a 2-inch square. I'm also using the braided linen trim in red, and I'm using the glittered star ornaments and the red rhinestone jewels. So those are the embellishments on the project, and let's get started. I will share with you the tools as we come across them. So first of all, your best tool that you're going to need is your trimmer. And I have extended my trimmer full length, so I swung the arm open. Let's see if I can fit it on here and you'll be able to see my measurements. So on the short side of my 8.5 by 11, I am going to score at 2 inches. And then I'm going to push it over and I'm going to score as well at 6.5 inches. So just past that extension, I'm going to score at 6.5. And then I'm going to rotate the cardstock. And the first score is going to be at 4 inches. I'm going to push up to 6 1/4. So 6 1/4 happens to land right on that transition bridge of the trimmer. You can see the longer marking. It's right between 6 and 6.5. So I've got 6 1/4. I just trying to be extra careful to make sure I'm on the right mark. Then I'm going to push up to 8 1/4. And one last score at 10.5. And I've done all of my scoring. Now I'm going to be doing some cutting. So I like to do my cutting right on the trimmer just because my paper snips kind of go a little askew once in a while. So I'm going to start. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of the panels. Now, if I share with you this image here, you can kind of see my 8.5 by 11 inch paper. You can see I've got some grayed out areas that I'm going to remove completely. So those top 4-inch panels are going to come off, and then the lower 1/2 inch panels at the bottom of the sheet are going to be eliminated. So I'm going to put them right on my trimmer, and I'm going to start at that 2-inch mark. And I know this time I'm not scoring, I'm going to trim, so I'm going to bring up my cutting blade, trying to be really careful not to cut as I come up. And I know this is going to be 4 inches deep, so I'm going to bring my blade up to the 4-inch mark, and I'm just going to slice that off. I'm going to push over to the 6.5 inch mark as well, starting at the 4-inch mark down below. And there we go. And I'm going to also come back and cut off these little 1/2 inch panels here at the top or the other end of the cardstock. So this is just 1/2 inch I'm going to cut off. So just bringing it down to 1/2 inch, and I'm going to push over to the 6.5 inch mark and take that off as well. So just that tiny little 1/2 inch panel. Right, so now I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to remove these 2 inch pieces. So I'm just going to come in down here at 2 inches and push, and I'm going to remove that piece. And I'm also going to come in and remove the one at the bottom. And again, you could use your paper snips to get these off, but I like to use my trimmer. That way I get a better, or a straight line. Sometimes I can't cut straight. And that's just pushing it off. There we go. And then finally that 1/2 inch panel up at the top at 2 inches. And then at the bottom as well. And that's the last 2 inches. Whoops. It's kind of getting stuck on my trimmer, which happens a lot. So let's see, I'm going to want to make sure it's right back on the track. Putting it up here at 2 inches. And one last cut I'm going to be making. Let's see, I'm just going to double check that I've got that scored. I do. I'm going to go ahead and make my other cuts on the score line. I'm going to cut up to this perpendicular score line. And I'm not going to cut these panels off. They're just going to be the flaps to create the box. So I'm just going to cut that, trim it down. And again, coming up to the 2 inches here. I'll push it over to the next panel. And cutting at 2 inches. And the next one as well down below the 2 inches. All right, so that should be all the trimming I need to do on my Stampin' Trimmer. I'm going to bring that aside and I'm going to remove some of the other pieces that just didn't quite fall off. So I'm going to start off here. I'm going to fold this a little bit down, and I'm going to make sure I didn't quite slice off this piece all the way through, and it's going to do that. And I'm also going to create my little dart on this flap. So just coming in and trimming off a tiny bit there. All right, so you can see I've now got my basic box construction. I'm going to kind of trim off some of the flaps so that they're not so bulky. So I'm going to debulk my box, and I'm going to start off by doing this top flap. So I'm just going to create some little darts. And that just means I'm going to take off a little sliver of cardstock at each side of the flap. Makes the seam less bulky. All right, so I've pretty much got my basic box construction done. I'm going to go ahead and get my bone folder, and I'm going to burnish on all of the folds, on all the score lines. I'm going to bring them down so that I can create my box. And I find the bone folder really makes some nice crisp folds, so I take a little bit of time to do it with the folder. And then I'm going to come in as well with the side flaps and do the same. And you can kind of see how my box is already starting to come together. right, so I've got that done. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in my Trio detailed punch. So this is a punch that has 3 different punches on it. It's got the corner rounder, which is what I want to use today. It also has a little detailed flower, and then it's got a slot, like a ribbon slot. So I'm going to bring in my corner rounder, punch down, and you can see what it's created. And I'm going to come in and do the other top corner as well. And while I have this out, I'm going to bring in my pattern paper. I'm going to get the 4 1/4 by 2 inch trimming, and I'm going to round the corners on this paper as well. And done with the corner rounder. So the next step is going to be, I'm going to actually adhere this. This is going to be the top of the carrier, the little handle, and I am going to adhere that flat. So my favorite adhesive is the Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. So I'm going to put a little bit of that along the edge. And that's not coming out nicely. Let's try a different container. A little bit, sometimes a little blockage forms on that. There we go. So I'm just going to add that to the top portion of the box. And I'm going to have an equal border all the way around, just under about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm then going to flip it over, and on this side of the box, I'm going to adhere my 4 1/4 by 1 3/4 inch panel. Let's see if I can bring this up a little bit. And it goes on the 3rd flap, so 1, 2, 3. Or on the 3rd panel, I should say. Really easy. And again, I'm going to have a border on this, about 1/8 of an inch, all the way around. There we go. And you can see it's coming together nicely already. While I've got it flat, I am going to create the slot for my carrier. So I'm using the Timeless Label punch. And I'm just going to center it in, so I'm going to flip over. I'm going to bring this up and kind of center it horizontally and vertically, so making sure my paper's straight. There we go. All right, so I've got my slot for my carrier done. I'm going to set that aside. And now I am ready to put my adhesive on. So I'm going to lay this flat. That's the easiest way to put the adhesive on. And I am using the tear and tape. It makes it really sturdy. You want an aggressive adhesive, and the tear and tape does that perfectly. So just on the flap, that 1/2 inch flap, I'm just going to run it across that. And I'm going to flip over. Now I'm going to put some adhesive on the 2. Let's see. Let's see if I'm doing this right. What have I done? I think I've already messed up. I have. I've put the adhesive on the wrong side. So let me go ahead and add it to the correct side. The side that has the 3rd panel in, I'm going to put my adhesive down there. So good thing I checked. And it's not going to be critical because this flap is not going to be showing. So it means I've got a little extra adhesive on there that I don't need. Now I'm going to flip over, and I am going to put adhesive on these 2 bottom flaps here, 2 tracks right down here. So 1 track here. I'm going to put it on the inside, just butted almost to the score line, and on the outside of the flap as well. Then I'm going to put it on the opposite, same way, right next to the score line on the outside. And then on the, sorry, that was the inside by the score line, and on the outside of the flap as well. And I'm going to ignore this tape. I'm not going to need that. All right, so next I am going to make the slots for the K-cups. And the way I do that, I've kind of given myself a little bit of help. I have punched out two 1 3/4 inch circles using my 1 3/4 inch punch, and that's going to be my guide for where I need to punch for the K-cups. What I'm going to do is temporarily place these. I'm using just some temporary adhesive, a little sticky on the back. I'm going to position it right in place, and this is just a guide so that I know where to punch my carrier. And I'm going to try and kind of center these little 1 3/4 inch circles. That looks good. Now I'm going to bring in my punch, use these white circles as my guide, just kind of fit that right into the circle. There we go. So there's one hole for one K-cup, and I've got the other 1 3/4 inch circle for the second K-cup. All right, now I am ready to assemble the box. I'm going to start by bringing up the 4-inch flap, the tall flap, and it's going to go at a 90-degree angle. And the other ones are going to come in, fold it over, kind of rolling it up. You can see the box construction coming together. And what I like to do is bring up the bottom flap. I'm going to bring or fold the side flaps in. And then finally the top flaps go down. And those are the flaps that have the adhesive. So that's what it's going to look like finished. But since I'm just putting on the adhesive, I can leave that flap down there. I'm going to bring this to the side. Go ahead and remove the backing on this adhesive so that we can stick that. Let's see, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting the tear and tape off. And the best way to help out with that is just go ahead and burnish that on completely. Bring up maybe the scissors or your pick-a tool that helps remove that backing. All right, there we go. And I want to make sure that that is perfectly aligned so that we have a nice box construction going on here. That's going to come down there, and I am going to stick this down, and I'm going to do the opposite side, doing the same as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and burnish that down. Makes it easier to reveal that tear and tape. And do the second. And now I'm going to close up this portion of the box and make sure it's nice and secure. And one last adhesive strip right here. I'm going to pull that off. And this gets aligned to the back panel. So I'm going to bring this up, secure that there, and burnish that down. There we go. So you can see I've got the basic box construction going on here. The next thing I'm going to do is decorate. So here's how I've done my decorating. You can see I've got the cute little coffee mug and a sentiment that says "with love for you," and those came from, let's see, I thought I had those handy. I do not. This came from the Press On stamp set. That's a cute little coffee mug, and I am going to be stamping that on Pear Pizzazz using Memento Black ink. And I'm actually going to stamp that twice onto the Pear Pizzazz. So one is going to be for the overall circle and one is for paper piecing. And I'm going to stamp one last cup on the Pear Pizzazz pattern. And what I did, I put this on the diagonal, makes a cuter pattern. I'm going to stamp that down. And we are going to do some paper piecing. So let's start off by circle punching this Pear Pizzazz cup. And I'm using the 1 3/4 inch punch. It's going to bring that right in. Punch down. My second Pear Pizzazz, I just want the center portion of the cup right in here. So here we go. I just want that little, it's almost like a cozy right around the cup. Easy snipping since it's just straight lines. Got it. And that is going to be paper pieced on this patterned Pear Pizzazz paper. And I'm just cutting the cup. I'm not worried about the handle. So again, easy fussy cutting, just straight lines. And before I assemble this together, I'm going to put some cute little holly leaves on here. And the holly leaves come from the Tag Buffet stamp set, if you want to make yours exactly like mine. Otherwise, you can kind of fill in with stamps you might have on hand. And I'm just going to add some holly leaves right on here. Fill that little band with more leaves. There we go. And so now I am going to piece this little coffee cup together. This goes right onto the patterned Pear Pizzazz. And then next, this piece is going to go right onto the circle punch Pear Pizzazz. And I'm just going to lay it right atop the stamped mug. Makes it really easy to get a cute mug without having to color in or create any pattern on there. Now I'm going to layer this atop a 2-inch real red circle. So I'm going to bring in my 2-inch punch. This gets layered right on top. Again with flat adhesive. There we go. Now I'm ready to put this onto the box, but first I'm going to put a small red ribbon trim on there, and I should have a 4 1/4 inch strip ready to go. And the way I'm going to add that, let's see, glue dots would be my preferred choice. I don't see any glue dots handy. So let's see if I can get the glue dots. Well, no glue dots handy, so I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue on here. It's going to be a little bit messier than I'd like it to be, but that's okay. I just need flat adhesive, and glue dots would be my first choice, but I don't find them on the desktop, so I'm going to have to just go with this. And I'm going to put it at one end, bring it over to the other end, and glue down. And then I'm going to add my coffee mug that we just created. I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals, one at the top, one at the bottom. I'll bring this up. There we go. Right in there. I do want to add a sentiment, and I am borrowing that "With Love for You" from the Tag Buffet stamp set. And I'm going to be stamping that on Whisper White, just a scrap, because this is photopolymer. I want to make sure I get a nice impression. I'm going to go ahead and stamp onto the piercing mat. And I'm going to position it at the bottom because I'm going to be hand snipping this to follow the shape of the cursive writing. So I'm going to bring in my paper snips, and should be some pretty easy snipping. I'm just going to follow the curve of the cursive and bring it down straight. It goes really quickly. There we go. Curving it around. And I'm just following the curve. I'm turning my paper, following the curves in the script. And coming all the way around. There we go. With love for you. I'm next going to apply that or adhere that to the box top with some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to use the mini dimensionals since there are some tiny areas here. I'm just going to add that through. Put that right over the little coffee mug. And look at how cute does that look. So next we're just going to add in some of the embellishments. I'm going to put the red rhinestone jewels on to the holly leaves, and I'm going to tie a little bow around the carrier, adding that cute little glitter star. It's going to make a really special treat. So I added 3 jewels. I'm going to come in with my paper snips. I like to dig underneath to get the glue, make sure I get the glue dot. And let's see, there's 1, 2, there's my 3 rhinestones. I am going to come in, cut a length of ribbon or trim, not too long, just gonna make a little bow around. And here is another situation. It would be great to have a glue dot, and I don't. So typically I like to tie my ribbon or bows with a little glue dot right in the center to hold it in place. That's going to be a little bit more difficult this time. I do want to have the other end a little bit longer. There we go. And I'm going to bring in my little glitter star and position that right in place there. This one's going to be tricky to tie a bow in here, but we'll give it a try. Hold it in position, there we go. So we've got our cute little glitter star hanging from there, and I would probably put a glue dot in there and bring it bent around. So there we go, we've got our K-Cups for Two Caddy. What a sweet gift. And again, you can choose to fill yours with coffee, tea, or cocoa, and it makes a really sweet favor for a friend.